Hello, I'm Kim Magdalene, and you're watching Common Sense Parenting. And we're going through a book that was written by our host, Glenn Ellison, and also backed up by Denver Singleton, who has been working with him for a decade and a half now, working with parents of kids that are giving parents trouble. And we're going after the 5 to 10 year olds, the younger group, because they've been working with older kids for 24 years now, and they found that it's a good idea to catch them early, where they're not quite as tough and not quite as established in their attitudes, and the parents can have a little bit better, easier go of it. So the book we're using is called Tackling Life's Challenges. I hope you've gotten it by now. This is our eighth installment, and I hope you got the book by now and are looking through the book. But we're going through the book. We're on chapter 8 today. So I'm going to just jump right in. Of course, we always show this dad and his kid, and they're having a nice conversation, and they shook hands after this, right? No, I don't think so. I don't think this is the way it would have gone. So we like to catch them a little bit early so it doesn't get to this level, because this is totally out of control. So I want to read something from chapter 8 to get us started here. The reality of parental aspirations. Parents often dream big for their children. These dreams are full of good intentions. They come from a place deep in the heart, a place that wants the best, the very best for their kids. Kids mean a world to their parents, and parents want to give them the world in return. So, Glenn, let's start off with you talking about expectations and disappointments in dealing with a tough kid.
Yeah, it's a parent's nightmare when they want so much for their kid. They want their kids to succeed at everything they do. They want their kid to be popular and have good friends. And all of a sudden, well, it looks like this picture right here. And the bottom line is the book that I read clearly says that we should train up a child in the way they should go. And if you go back and look, really look, it has nothing to do with training up an adolescent. So I believe the author of that book knew exactly what we should be doing. But no, we're going to do it our way. We're going to wait till they're out of control and we're going crazy. Then we're going to try to turn this behavior around. Let me tell you what I know for a fact. Most parents are slap wore out by the time they get to this point that we're looking at right now. You work 6, 8, 10, 12 hours a day. You come home and you got chores to do there. You got kids screaming and yelling. You're not ready for this picture right here. That's why Loving Solutions, 5 to 10-year-old children, is where we're going from this point on. Well, by the way, let me point out that we're not ever going to stop helping this parent. But the bottom line is, you better be ready to go to war to win this battle.
Yeah,
Okay?
on page 132, then where it says here, they have their own dreams. We're talking about the kids. So getting on the same page with the kids is very important. Finding out what their dreams are. It isn't always about the parents' expectations. You have to know something a little bit about the kids, correct?
Absolutely. We have to certainly teach our children um, good manners and respect, discipline, to be able to succeed in life. Um, but then what happens is when we give this personal expectation of what we want our children to become, and that child may not be equipped for that. And so when we learn to manage our expectations based on what developmental processes that child takes or direction that child takes. I told my children, I said, here, I'm going to teach you to be obedient. I'm going to teach you to have discipline and respect for authority. And when you figure out what you want to do, this is how I did it, then you let me know. And if it's something that I can help with, I can support that and get behind it and push. But I'm not going to try to live my life vicariously through my children. And that's what a lot of parents do. They perhaps want to be the great baseball player or the football player, and their dream didn't come true. So I'm going to push my child into that direction so that they can become that which I could not. And so it's you do your child a disservice trying to make them become something that they're not, instead of what God called them to be in life. And so that process takes time. So managing our expectation, we have to manage based on timing. We can only give them the very best that we can, as for structure, discipline, support, family structure, all these things. We can give them all that, but decisions in life that they're going to make, you know, um, they're going to be theirs, and we have to be able to support or not support based on their decision making. But we never stop loving them, no matter what they decide. And I had to share that with my children on a constant basis. You're your own person. God created you as an individual, and so therefore, you need to get a plan. And I help guide that plan through giving them input, not telling them what to do. Input. And this is what we talked about earlier, influence versus control. We do not control anybody, and we shouldn't even try. But we can certainly give a lot of input and influence. And being the parent that that child respects, they will certainly take your advice and use it to the best interest of their life. And we can support what they do. So it's just important that we don't try to make our children be what we want it to be, or act like we act. They're separate. They're different people.
Yeah, I think
Absolutely.
that's difficult for parents to really get a line on, that they're not cookie cutter kids, even in the same household, even though the DNA is the same, everything else is the same. They're simply different human beings, right, Glenn?
Absolutely. I've got two grandsons, twin grandsons that are 14 years old. They are different as night and day. One loves athletics, the other one could care less. He was into the technology world. And the bottom line is, you can't make one of them play sports and the other one do technology. It just doesn't work. You have to look at what they want to do and support them in that direction as the best you can, as long as it's a safe direction. But the bottom line is, I think you said it already, there is no cookie cutter approach to raising kids today. None.
There's a lot of influence outside that's causing them to veer off a path, not only in school, but especially in school, but also electronics. Now we're talking about 5 to 10 years old, and I think most parents are wise enough not to get their kids distracted by a lot of electronics. But what about these single ladies who are, trying to juggle everything in the air? They've got a couple of kids at home, and they get home and they picked them up from daycare or wherever, from school late. They've been at 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening. By the time 6:30 in the evening, they got to get a meal together. And what do you suggest that these ladies do to know their kid better, so they can better understand why their behavior is going a little cattywampus?
Well, first of all, we have to certainly to get to know our children. As difficult as you said, that scenario you just painted is where the mom is doing all these different things. It's better when two parents are there, especially when dad is in the home. But unfortunately, sometimes that's not always the case, and we have single moms who are out there trying to do it all. It takes an extra effort on their part. There's no easy way around it. There's no one size fits all approach to this, because, like I said, each child is different, every parent is different. But one thing I do know, you have got to spend time. This is for every parent. You've got to spend time getting to know that child. You got to set times where you can talk to them and share what your heart with them, and then love them through their pain and angst, so that you can and gain their love and respect for you by your actions. And only then, you'll have the greatest influence in their life, and you'll be able to help them to tackle all of life's challenges, because they'll always seek advice from you. And so I give kudos to those moms who are trying to do it, um, and give it, but there's no easy way of dealing with this, except for you got to be willing to invest the time in your child.
We have had a lot of single moms come through our life in 2 decades, a lot. And it breaks my heart because sadly, When you're a mom and you got 3 boys that's as big as you, and they're telling you what they're going to do and what they're not going to do, it is an absolute nightmare. That's why in our support system, we make it very clear. Your mother is my friend. You will not mess with her anymore. And we help mom put together a parenting plan so she can have some peace and she's not having to do everything by herself. Like Denver said, I think a week ago, there's no reason for a 14-year-old not to be putting his clothes away, cleaning the dishes, vacuuming the house, none whatsoever. So we have to have a family meeting and reestablish the rules, boundaries, and consequences and the chores, because those boys should be helping mom way more than most of them that we have seen come into our life.
I remember growing up, I was the only boy or child in the house. My brother was 9 years older than I was, so he'd already gotten out of the house a long time ago, and I was still there. I remember washing dishes, cleaning the house every Saturday. I could not go out and do anything until the whole house was clean, and I had to do it. Both of my parents worked, and it was good for me. I didn't like it at the time. I can tell you, I didn't like it at the time. And I tried to rush, but they knew when I rushed. It was just a poor job. But it was very good. Now, so isn't it a whole lot easier that when you got a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's giving you a hard time and it's 8 o'clock at night and bedtime's 8:30 or 9 o'clock? Isn't it easier just to give them what they want, let them have it, and just, you know, get them to bed somehow so that they'll shut up and leave you alone and give you some peace and quiet? Isn't that a whole lot easier?
Well, and we always tell the parent they have to do something to get themselves the rest that they need. And to paint that scenario when that child is being rambunctious at a certain time of night, and you know you got to be up early the next day, sure. But we have a term at our camp that supper is coming, and that's going to happen. Supper is coming means that, yeah, you might get what you want today, but there are going to be issues. And this is why we have our parents journal everything, so that when they journal, they'll keep track of what their child behavior, and that child will very well know that they did something inappropriate, and mom just gave in or dad just gave in just to get them through this hump. But then supper's coming, and when that parent sets those type of standards for the family, that child know they're not going to get away with it. And then the next time perhaps around, when mom, can I have $5? Well, son, Tuesday night you were acting out of character and you would not go to sleep until I gave you this or that. Well, son, that's not appropriate, and therefore there are consequences for your actions. So, and it could be many different ways that can be played out. But I just kind of give a brief example of what I meant when I said supper is coming, because you may not be held accountable today for this action, but you will be held accountable at some point. And a parent has to
Absolutely.
keep track of that. Glenn?
Yeah, absolutely. These kids will push the envelope as hard as they can push it, as long as they can get away with it. And so that's why having a family meeting, once they come through our lifestyle, they have the curriculum and they see the plan, then they have to sit down with these kids, 2 or 3 or ever how many there might be, and explain to them, we can't live this way anymore. I don't like it. You don't like it. So we're going to change what we've been doing. The parenting is going to be different. We're going to have rules. We're going to have boundaries, and we're going to have very clear expectations. But I promise you, as much as I love you, I will not ever argue with you again. By the way, arguing never gets anything done. All it does is separate and divide. It does not help one iota. So therefore, mom has to be so consistent, particularly if she's a single mother. Her worst enemy will be inconsistency, because once you let a
Amen.
strong-willed kid get away with something, he thinks he wins. And he's going to keep testing you and testing you and testing you until he doesn't win anymore. That's
Mhm.
why it's so important to fight that battle from the get-go, and don't cave in because they make it tough on you. And I'm telling you, We will be there to help that mom. We will be there to help that family. And we've got families all over the country that we are supporting and encouraging. And we know it works. They just got to work it. We can't do it for them.
Well, aren't you really looking for a better win? The kid wins, but what is he really winning? He's winning something very small, just something he wants the way he wants it or she wants it. Uh, isn't helping them to get a better win something that is an accomplishment that makes more sense and is better for them and better for their own self-respect? Isn't that what you're talking about on page 139, where every child's unique and they've dreamed of becoming something special, but they don't seem to be even keeping their grades up to get there? So isn't that what you're trying to do? Set goals a little bit higher by not allowing them to have small wins so that they can have big wins later on?
Well, we have a reward system. we have a scorecard, is what I call it. It's a behavioral chart where we can track the behavior and build a reward system into that. So our biggest goal at the end of the week, well, let me back up. In this scorecard that we use, if this kid was an absolute perfect kid, he would be a 7-check kid for that week. But our goal is not for the kid to be perfect, because I don't know anybody's perfect, including the parents. But we ask the kid as we have this family meeting, Johnny, what would you want to put out the effort to get a 7-check week? What kind of reward could mom and dad afford that you would enjoy doing? Well, let's say he wants to go to the skateboard park. Okay. That's his reward for 7-check. We do the same thing for a 6-check. We do the same thing for a 5-check kid. But anything less than 5 checks, automatically the child puts themselves on restriction. Now, come Friday night, when the work week ends for parents and kids, the kid says, hey, Mom, can I go to the skateboard park? No, sir. You only earned 4 checks this week. You're on restriction this week. But no. Here's my journal that Mr. Dever talked about, where we track behavior and can prove to this kid, we didn't put you on restriction. You put yourself on restriction. And what we're doing in that process is helping them understand and take ownership of their choices. Once they figure out that they are their worst enemy, that's when they start making better choices. And the reward system, if it's what they really want, will absolutely change behavior much better than what we see in this picture.
So what do you say? What do you
And
say
I,
to parents who Denver? What do you say to parents who say, "Well, it sounds like a good theory, but it doesn't sound like it should work"?
well, I mean, if we hold our children accountable for everything done, good, bad, or indifferent in their life, that helps them to reach better, reach for a higher level, and so we can set the standard of what our expectation to be, but we have to now hold a child accountable for whatever it is that we want them to do. If they want something, we let them earn that. We don't give it to them. They have to earn it, and they earn it by having good behavior. They earn it by doing their schoolwork. We have raw. It's called respect, anger management, work ethic. We teach parents, and our expectation for them is to be the very best version of themselves. And like I said, and not like somebody else. That's what the intended goal here is. And so as that child grows and develops, when we teach them those basic fundamentals of management and work ethic, those 3 points are loaded, and those things help that child to become the very best person that they can be on any level. So we have to be, and every child is unique, and every parent has to understand that some children are going to be better at things than others. And when we get to that point where that child, one excels in education, that's great. One may excel in sports and be mediocre in education. But we have to consistently parent that child. And that's what Glenn said earlier. If that child, if that parent is not consistent with this process, They won't be successful. You have to, it is a process that once you set the standard, hold everybody accountable to the standard. You're not
Well,
going to get the same.
let's consider 5 to 10 year olds. Okay,
Okay.
it seems to me now. This is just my opinion here. You tell me if I'm wrong. It seems to me like a week would be a long time. Shouldn't they have like little daily goals? Like if you do such and such and such, then you get to ride your tricycle, or you get
Absolutely.
I mean, am I making some sense here for people with younger children that the goals should be a little bit tighter, not so long in length where they feel like they've ruined an entire week if they mess up one day?
Our curriculums teaches us that shorter consequences are better as long as it corrects the behavior. We can add to that if necessary, but that is, having a child earn what starting early, and that age group we start as far as 3 or 4. But once the room is clean and everything's picked up off the floor, we do it with my grandbabies now. Then you can go do this, you know. And so the earlier you start, which is the intended goal here for what we're trying to do, we want parents to start early so that they can develop these skills, these internal controls for that child early, so that child will have the expectation: before I go outside, I must clean up room. And before I go play with the blocks in the den, I must go and sweep the floor. I mean, children will rise, especially younger children. They will rise to whatever level you give expectation to, but don't be overly bearing in that expectation. Just set a standard, and every time they meet one goal, keep raising the bar, because our goal is to get them to the very best level that they can reach. And once they've plateaued, then the rest is up to them. And often that happens. A child, may not be college bound, but you can teach them a strong work ethic from being a child from 5, 6, 7, 8 years by picking up laundry and putting it in the room. Now, maybe not washing it, but picking it up and taking it to the room. They're 5 years old. There's many age appropriate things that the child can do to develop these skills early. But when parents don't, they do everything for them. And we rob that child, and in other unit, we rob that child of the ability to grow in those areas because we've done everything for them. And then they grew up and don't know how to do anything. I never
Mhm.
forget when I joined the military, the guys in my unit couldn't even iron their own clothes. They paid me to iron their clothes. And that's because their mom did everything for them.
Yeah.
And it's crazy that we did our children, they did their children a disservice. And most of those guys didn't stick around the military because there's a lot of work, a lot of discipline in the military.
Mhm.
So it's just important that we do that.
Well, isn't it also like, for instance, again, we're talking about little kids, 5 to 10 years old, um, being innovative and thinking of interesting ideas that you can work, like say holding out from them. Oh no, you haven't picked up your stuff yet, so dinner's waiting for you when you get it all done. It's on the table. We're going to go ahead and start eating, and and if you don't get it all done before we're through eating, we're cleaning up the table. Things like that. Does that sort of thing work?
Well, we
Absolutely.
certainly invite, we want to feed our children,
Yeah.
because we don't want children to go, especially those ones who are oppositional, strong-willed children.
Mhm.
We don't want them going out there telling anybody that my mom or dad didn't feed me.
Right.
But, um, but yeah, I mean, but once they complete their task, then
Mhm.
certainly they can have their meal at that time. And
Mhm.
however long or short, that'll be depending on them, because we tell our parents, let them take as long as they want.
Mhm.
But we also advise our parent, we're very careful with this because we don't want to break any laws or anything like that, that we
Okay.
must, feed that child. And if we put food in front of them and they don't decide not to eat it, that's on them. But we're going to take a picture that we put food in front of that child to make sure we would, our intended as a parent was to feed the child. But children do lie,
Mhm.
unfortunately.
They
And
do.
a lot of parents can get into trouble if that child goes and say, "Oh, my mom didn't feed me last night," or "Dad didn't feed me." And that's a lie, but
Yeah.
but those teachers have to report that. So we have to be just very careful with that one.
Right. What about reward for effort?
Absolutely.
Instead necessarily outcome, but what about effort?
Well, we can encourage effort and encourage them to do better. but giving a child we call it a positive stroke, if it ain't nothing but flushing the toilet. Thank you for flushing the toilet. That's
Yeah.
important. And see, that creates what that creates in that child. Oh, if they told me good job for flushing the toilet, hey, maybe I could, do something else to get whatever they need or want from mom or dad. And that's generally how it works. Because once that thought and that process is in place in that child's mind, oh, they're like, oh, if I rake the yard today, we know mom and dad will probably do this for me if I ask. Absolutely. But we actually keep track of that now. In our curriculum and in our charts, our scorecard, as Glenn said, we actually keep track of this stuff. So, it's not happenstance that things happen. It's actually tracked and monitored throughout the process. Glenn actually keeps those sheets from the parents. So so this, like I said, it's not just happenstance. It's actually recorded, and that child either going to earn it or they don't earn it, and that's just how it is. The chart's going to be the scorekeeper.
We are near the end of our session here. I wanted to do a little recap. So, goals, and reviewing the goals, sit down and list out the goals you have for your child, and then plan for bumps. Not everything is going to go exactly the way you want it to go. Bump, bump,
Unfortunately.
bump. It's like speed bump world here, right? And then check goals regularly. And here it says every few months. With little kids, it may be like should maybe every month, right? And then
Yes.
spotlight the effort. Spotlight the effort. Let them know that you appreciate their effort. Maybe a little hug here and a little pat on the back there, and scruff up their hair a little bit. Let them know that you love them. Touch them, kiss them on the cheek. Things like that. Make sure that you give them the affection that children always want. Moms are real good about that. Dad's not necessarily so, but kids like that affection from their parents, and they especially like an attaboy or attagirl from a dad. That's a real big deal to a kid.
Oh yeah.
And
Absolutely.
probably don't know just how big a deal that is. Girls especially love their dad to say, "I'm proud of you." Boys love their moms to say, "I love you," and they like to be stroked. Things like that. Got time for a testimony?
Yep.
All right, here we go. Dear teachers, that's y'all. Dear teachers, your mailbox.
Kim,
Yeah.
this is actually a teacher with 3 kids that were eating her lunch.
Okay. Okay.
She wanted to take this to school and tell all the teachers, there's another way to do this.
All right. This is a testimony to the teacher. I got you. Okay. So your mailbox, you'll find a card that promotes the Parent Help Center. Apparently, it's in the mailboxes on the walls at the school, right?
Yeah, cubicles.
This is a wonderful lifestyle. I've been personally involved for over a year and has transformed my family. If you know of a family that is struggling with behavior problems, attitude issues, strong-willed children, even drug or alcohol use by teenagers, the Parent Help Center can work wonders. Because Mr. Glenn and his team are here locally, we're lucky to have weekly support and camp right in town. This is as much for parents as it is for children. It's a lifestyle change that will benefit the whole family. I know you got into teaching to make a difference. Telling someone in need about the Parent Help Center may be your chance to help a family in ways you can only imagine. Please include this website in your class newsletter. So let's add to that the fact that we're online here, and there are people probably all over the United States and maybe even the world that are watching these videos and will get the book and follow the book. And just because they don't live right here in Jacksonville, Florida, and don't have access to the Parent Help Center, they can certainly take these concepts and these precepts to heart. Take a look at this book. Get it from Amazon, Tackling Life's Challenges, written by Glenn Ellison, the guy right down there on the screen. And just like this little young lady here and her mom, changed parents will see changed kids. It starts with the parents. Guys, thanks a lot for talking to us and helping us out here. And we'll see you again in the next session.
Thank you, Kim.
Thank you.